Bowing to pressure, Somali president drops bid to extend term. After clashes in Mogadishu and political pressure, President Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed promises to appear before Parliament to debate extension proposal. Somali's president Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed announced he will not attempt to extend his term by 2 years, bowing to domestic and international pressure after clashes in the capital Mogadishu split security forces along clan lines. Hours before the president's speech early on Wednesday, Prime Minister Mohamed Hussein Robel had denounced the proposed term extension and called for preparation for new presidential election. Mohamed's term expired in February, but the country failed to hold election as planned. Earlier this month, the lower house of parliament voted to extend his 4-year term by another 2 years. The Senate rejected the move, provoking a political crisis. Commanders in the police and military defected to the opposition, and rival factions of the security forces fortified positions in central Mogadishu, raising fears of heavy fighting in the heart of the capital and a security vacuum in the surrounding areas that could be exploited by Al-Qaeda-linked Al-Sahab fighters. Unconditional implementation. In his televised statement, Mohammed, who is better known as Farmazo, commended the efforts of the Prime Minister and other political leaders and welcomed the statement they issued, calling for elections to be held without further delay. He also called for urgent discussions with the signatories to an agreement signed last September on the conduct of the vote. He also said he had decided to appear before the parliament on Saturday to gain their endorsement for the electoral process, upon as he called on parties to refrain from any and all actions that could jeopardize stability in the country. Analysts said Farmajo's pledge to appear before parliament suggested was intended to signal he was placing the question on his proposal term extension in its hands. The president also urged to return to negotiations over the delayed election and called on all signatories to the September agreement to come together immediately for urgent discussions on the unconditional implementation of that agreement. The opposition, which demanded the president to resign, did not immediately respond. The president did not discuss the opposition in his speech, but denounced unnamed individuals and foreign entities who have no aim other than to destabilize the country. The heads of 2 regional states who had been staunch allies of the president also rejected on Tuesday the proposed 2-year extension of Mohammed's term. Those leaders said in a statement immediately after the president's speech they welcomed his announcement. Prime Minister Robel had backed that joint statement and called on security forces to return to their barracks. He also urged opposition leaders to stop any actions that could harm Somalia's stability. Emerging fragmentation. Mohammed's attempt to extend his term also angered foreign donors who backed his government. This week's opposition forces abandoned positions in the countryside as they headed for a showdown in the capital, allowing Al-Sahab to take over at least one town. Forces loyal to the opposition hold important parts of Mogadishu and clashed with government forces over the weekend, raising worries the country could return to an all-out war. Alarmed by an extraordinary development, the United Nations, African Union, United States and other on Tuesday warned against the emerging fragmentation of the Somali National Army along clan lines. Some residents fled, worried that Somalia was again collapsing into conflict after years of trying to rebuild from its devastating civil war. The president said he urged all security agencies to maintain the stability of the capital and the safety of innocent civilians, avoiding any actions that may lead to insecurity. Somali's election was delayed amid disputes between federal government and the states of Puntland and Jubaland along with opposition. The president, a former US citizen who gave up the status while in office, tried to defend his actions on the election standoff in a recent interview with his former local newspaper, the Buffalo News, asserting Somalia cannot afford a power vacuum and the extra time would allow officials to organize the first one person, one vote during elections in decades. He added, who can lead if he leave? Teetering on the brink, the latest unrest in the second bout of violence in Mogadishu over the proposed extension of Mohammed's term. Continued clashes could further splinter Somali security forces along ethnic lines and the International Crisis Group, a think tank. Somali is teetering on the brink of a major breakdown once again, it said in briefing published on Tuesday. Thank you.